Hey besties, Monica Ferguson here and welcome to World Domination. This is a safe space for absolute legends who are bold enough and brave enough to go within, to recreate their belief system, to aim high, to chase their wildest dreams and become everything that they are destined to be. This is a space for people who are serious about growth, about healing. We talk about all things mind, body, spirit, and we have the courage to go further than most people even dare to dream. Welcome, let's get into it. Hey besties, welcome to this week's episode where we're bringing back Lawrence. Now you may remember him from several episodes ago where we talked about what is your version of success, and this was so exciting to have a continuation of that. He is a Kiwi boy, same as me. We're even from the same tiny town even though we never met, and he's now a digital nomad. He's an elevation coach. He's helping epic people to launch their businesses and build them in a sustainable way. And I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation where we get so deep into balancing the masculine and the feminine, how to take action, how to keep moving forward, but not too much. You know, how do we get the balance? So without further ado, I bring you my pal, Lawrence. Enjoy. Hey, friends. Yeah. Welcome back. Guess who I have back? Hey, Lawrence. Welcome back, my friend.
Hey, thank you for having me. Excited to be back. Obviously, last time we caught up was one of my favorite podcast episodes ever. So I'm excited to jump back in. And obviously, we've been chatting in yarn, and just before this, and the energy is already high. And I'm just loving it. It may be the 2 coffees I've already had, but I'm feeling the energy, which is good.
Firstly, what do you mean by one of your favorites? That was a mistake.
Oh yeah, sorry. I think you're cutting out. Yes. I'm just going through a tunnel right now.
Now, before we get into this, we're going to take a poll here, okay? Because you just said something shocking to me, which is that you think potato is a vegetable. Now, was not.
That's where we're going.
This was not where I thought this was going. But just let's just take a quick poll. Send me a DM, friends. Broccoli is his second favorite vegetable, yeah? But he says potatoes is first. Potatoes, I think, technically is a starch, and I'm sure I could find some data to back this up. But yeah.
Well, let's see where that poll comes out. I'm very interested to see. I don't know. I always thought a potato was a vegetable, but I'm very interested to see. So let's see.
You could probably argue for both, but I just thought that was quite amusing. But anyway, now I need to find a clever way to segue into our topic. Now,
good luck.
I don't need to segue. We're professionals here. Now, I actually I even wrote a note the other day. Because when we were chatting in the DMs talking about this podcast, you said something that jumped out at me. And I love when that happens because I'm like, that's it. Yeah. That's the key. And what you said was, quote, "What will be with input from me." And I love that because there's so many directions we can take that. But it really speaks to, do you like my segue here? It really speaks
beautiful.
But it speaks to the whole point of this episode, right? Because I could easily rant about this topic for hours because I think what we see in the personal development and the coaching world is the super hyper masculine, the Dave Goggins type, get up at 4 a.m., you lazy piece of shit, like da-da-da-da, you're nothing, you're weak. And I'm like, oh, okay. In my experience, shame-based teaching doesn't work that well because people typically don't like themselves to begin with, so that doesn't help. But then at the other end, we've got this hyper feminine, I don't chase, I attract, I sit back and everything comes to me energy. And so I'm so excited to just hear your take on this. Finding that happy medium and what you find works for you and your clients and how you guys kind of figure out how much action to take versus how much inspiration, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I think it's such an important topic. And yeah, I just love that quote because, I mean, that first part of the quote, what will be, I'm not too sure who initially said that or where that originally came from, but it's obviously a quote that I've heard for a while. And it's a quote that I personally leaned into for such a long time, which was probably more of like that, attracting the right things and like law of attraction, manifestation, and all that sort of good stuff. And it's because there's nothing wrong with that. And I do very much agree to a lot of that to a certain extent with everything though, right? Because, if we're thinking about, building our dreams for the future, we've got to visualize them. We've got to understand what we're working towards. We've got to start manifesting, like law of attraction, right? As soon as we picture something, we understand what we're working towards, we see opportunity to reach that all around us, right? But if we hadn't taken the time to get clear on that, then we wouldn't know what those opportunities look like. So I feel that and I get that. But that's the way that I was sort of leaning into for a long period of time. What will be. But it wasn't through, I guess, experience and sort of like, connecting with other people, seeing what other people were doing, that I realized that there's such an important piece to that puzzle, which is that with input from me, right? And that is that direct action. Like, you, of course, visualize, manifest, journal, do all of the stuff to clarify where you're heading and what you're wanting to do. But then you've got to take that action, and you've got to take the action to work towards those dreams. Like you said, there are, personalities out there that are like, just work, 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 and it'll happen, right? But it is a harmonious balance that we have to strike between working and building towards those dreams and actually enjoying the life that we have, right?
Yep. Amen. Mic drop.
Yeah.
So many thoughts. I mean, the thing that stuck out to me, like when I first got into this work, was that 80% of success is psychology. 80%. And then, so that's only 20% action. But that 20% matters, right? Because we've done the 80% first, it's aligned. It's not a random stab in the dark. It's like, okay, this is intentional, this is purposeful, this is, not just some random thought. But like, this is why I'm so obsessed with the subconscious mind, right? Because it blows my mind that we don't speak about this more often. Like, if 95% of the mind is subconscious, 95% of our mind is subconscious, and 80% of our success comes from our mindset, our dominant beliefs, why aren't we spending all of our time working on our subconscious mind? Like, when you think like the David Goggins types, right? These are the ones, for anyone that doesn't know who he is, he's like a get out of bed at 3 a.m., like, just push, just who cares if you don't have any friends, you're a loser, like, it's real tough. And I know some people dig that. It's not my vibe, to be honest. But I've never once heard him speak about his belief system. It's always about you're weak. It always stems from this, you're weak, you're broken, you just need to harden up. But what we understand with the subconscious mind is like, it's there for our survival. So you can't outwork a belief that says I'm not safe, which is why that balance is so important. Like, if we're trying to be successful, and I mean, we know this better than anyone, like, you go to start a business, every fear, every trigger, every insecurity is going to come up. And like, I've been working through some big blocks lately because I'm about to crack at like a new level. And it's like all of this childhood trauma stuff has come up, and it's linked to not feeling safe. That's what it is. So I've had to completely rewire my nervous system to be like, I actually am safe to hold this much visibility, this much success, whilst my nervous system is like, but it's not safe. Like, everything's dangerous. No one's safe. You can't trust anyone. It's like, that is so much internal work that you wouldn't see in the external. But but then there's like a thought, right? And it's like, make this post, and that post will blow up because the internal work was done first. And it's like, that's the law of attraction, right? Like, we attract what we are. And this is why I'm, again, so obsessed with the subconscious mind. Like, we attract our dominant state. So that's our unconscious. And it's like, no one takes time to look within. What the heck?
Exactly. I think there's so much power there. There's so much truth there. And I think, I also like how you sort of talking about like different sort of fears and different things popping up as we sort of continue our journey, as we grow. Obviously, myself, I see this all the time working with business owners and people starting their businesses, growing their businesses. And all these fears seem to be popping up for people as they're going on this journey, right? But as you said, a lot of it is coming back from stuff that has happened in the past, stuff that they've locked away in their mind, but it's always active, it's always present, right, in the subconscious mind. So it's actually intentionally taking time to explore that, to be present with it, to understand that, and obviously sometimes do some really tough and deep work to move through some of those pains so that we can allow ourselves to be at those next levels to, move forward and grow into these new spaces, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I'd actually love to hear what you do for yourself and also what you recommend to your clients when it comes to like action versus the internal stuff. Like, how much action to take how do you work through that with people? Like right at the start, no one knows what to do. You've got all these mixed messages, people saying hustle more, people saying do less. It's like, and then you think, oh my God, am I doing enough? Am I doing it right? Have I failed? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean that is a it's a big question, and really it is going to be dependent on the individual, right? And it's always going to be the case with what feels right, because it comes down to even at a practical and logical sense, right? It's also understanding how much time one has available and how much energy one has available to then start to plan out the work that they need to do or want to do. All right. So I think that is kind of the place to start is say when you've got to a place of understanding the actions or the tasks that need to be done to say start a business or just anything in life, really. It could be a career, it could just be time with family, going on holiday, whatever the occasion is you want to sort of plan for. But it is around understanding the certain tasks, but then understanding how much time you have available over your week. So let's just talk about a week, for example, understanding how much time you have over your week. What are the things that are already taking up? Is there stuff with like kids, with family, with job, with other commitments? And then really understanding, okay, cool, let's slot in these tasks and things to get done, and using those techniques that people talk about with like time blocking or time boxing, you're batching your work, that sort of stuff, like really to maximize that. But it doesn't stop there, right? It's then understanding the energy that you have available and understanding, all right, when is it best to do these different types of tasks? What works with my natural energy rhythm in terms of, is it the mornings, is it the evenings, is it whenever to do certain types of tasks? But it's doing all of this work first to then really know, okay, well, I can comfortably, invest this amount of time and energy into my projects, into my business. But then, I still want to have this time and space available for my life, for my dreams to just be present and enjoy. And that's one of the things that I do is I get people, because obviously I work with clients wanting to start their businesses or grow their businesses. So naturally, when I'm talking to people, they are wanting to build, 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 build. So that's why I help them move through that block of planning out all the work they need to do first. And then we start to think about, all right, cool. Well, how can we still create space to enjoy life? How can we still create space to be present? How can we still create space to dream, to actually build to think for the future, to visualize for the future, and have those creative spaces as well.
Mm.
So that's kind of an approach that I would take with someone.
Yeah, I love that so much. And just to like point out a couple of things to people listening, there's so much power in that, and that it's very holistic and it's very scalable and sustainable.
Mm,
And I think this
mm,
is something that is so easy to like, it seems quite boring when you go online and you see these people that are, like posting their fake photos on private jets and stuff, and you think, oh my God, she's only
mm,
21 and she's already achieved that in 6 months. Like, I'm such a loser because here I am just posting every day and I'm only getting a few followers a day. And it seems really like, ugh. But this is
mm.
actually how it works, right? It's just little
Yeah,
consistent steps over and over and over again. And it's not this big thing. And that's why most people don't do it, because it takes a lot
yeah,
of stamina. So it's like we need to be smart and actually figure out, yeah, how is this going to work with my family and my life and my other goals and my own happiness? It's not just like I'm going to work 1,000 hours a week until I'm a multi-millionaire and then I'll figure everything out. It's like you're going to burn out before that
yeah.
happens. Like, we're not doing
Exactly, or
that.
worse. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's those small little habits, right? It's kind of getting consistent there. And I think like you say, it's like it is sometimes just about those, getting those one or those two followers, like these little kind of milestones, but that's what's going to allow you to build sustainably, right? These little habits, these little things, that's what's going to be produce that sustainable growth. And it's a sustainable growth that's obviously going to allow you to build for the long run and enjoy the process at the same time. So you don't either
Yeah.
burn out and then, get sick of it and give up. You're actually going to be in a space where you're comfortable and ready and excited to continue the journey.
For sure. Um, just then I was thinking, man, I was like, this sounds like another podcast that we've done. And it was the last one that we did was around what is our own version of success. And plug,
Yeah.
go and listen to it because it was so good and it really leapfrogs off this, right? Like it's not necessarily the big stuff that we even want. It's like Like
mm,
you're such a beautiful
mm,
example of this, like you're sharing these
mm,
amazing adventures you're having on your travels and being on
mm,
frozen lakes at sunset and these beautiful moments
mm.
that like those are the moments you're going to remember when you're grey and old. Like,
Yeah,
whoa, that was incredible. Like being with your
that's
new
it.
fiance in beautiful places, like that's the whole point of all of this. It's not just to
It
work
is.
a million hours a day, right? It's like to actually have a life. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and I think you make such a good point, right? And I want to be honest with your audience. Like this is something that I'm very much working on and trying to be better at because, again, for the longest time, I was just working, and trying to do some cool stuff in my business. And like, yes, there's always been a balance, and I've understood these concepts that we've been talking about, but I also found myself rushing from one moment to the next,
Mm.
and I'm trying to take this active time now to just be more present in these moments, right? And share these moments with my fiance and just really capture them in my mind, right? And I think there has just
Yeah.
been so much power in slowing down and enjoying those and just intentionally trying to make those moments last longer. And there's been so much magic in that and just so much enjoyment. And as a result, I'm just feeling so much more, you know, fulfilled and like so much more energy just
Yeah.
being able to experience and take in those moments for a longer period of time. It's been pretty cool.
So awesome. And I love
Mm.
that too, because it's like we're always a work in progress. And I think that's
Mhm.
important for
Yeah.
people to hear as well. Like both of us have just referenced the work that we're doing on ourselves. Like we never get to a point where we're like, I've cracked it, I'm perfect. I never have to do
Mm-mm.
anything again. Like I've nailed it. It's like we're always going to be in a state of reflection, right? Like, is this working?
Yeah.
What do I want more of? And as life changes, we get to evolve as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, and something else I just want to point out, and I was hoping that this was going to come up, is the
All right.
balance. So because we've got the masculine and the feminine perspective here, right? So
Yes.
what's really interesting to me is like you're very masculine led, makes sense, right? So when I talk to
Mhm.
you about how do you manage stuff, it's very like systems, processes.
Yeah.
Look at your
Practical,
schedule.
logical.
Whereas I
Hmm.
talked much
Hmm.
more about intuition, your feeling, what aligns. And these are really important distinctions because both of these things are required in order for us to
Yeah.
be successful. But like naturally, you're masculine led. That's how your mind is wired. So it makes sense that you lead that way. But
Yeah.
listen to like what you're talking about is coming into the present, slowing down. That's the feminine, right?
Mm.
And whereas like yeah, what I see a lot in the feminine collective is it's too passive. It's too,
Mm.
I don't say attract, and they kind of use that, but it's actually a form of self sabotage. It's like, no,
Yeah.
you're scared
Yeah.
because it's scary. Like, of course it is. It's
Absolutely.
so scary. But it's like
Yeah.
you still have to take that 20% action. You still have to take the
Mm.
action. And
Mhm.
and for my, woo woo spiritual friends out there, like these are universal laws. Like law of attraction,
Mhm.
everyone knows, but law of
Mhm.
action is also a
Mm.
universal law. And it's like
Yeah.
people forget about that one. It's not so
Yeah.
exciting. I just want the car to manifest in my driveway. I don't want to have to actually go and do
Mm.
something.
It doesn't quite work like that. Yeah, yeah. Nah, I think it's so true. And then it's because it's the same with like the masculine energy as well of like the people that just push, work, and then wonder why, they're not necessarily getting the car to keep that example happening, but it's because they didn't get clear on where they were going and how they were actually going to achieve the finances to buy the car or even get clear enough on what car they're actually wanting to work towards and stuff like that. So I think absolutely it's you got to have that balance. And I think it's also really powerful for us as coaches to understand, like you say, how we naturally lead through our own life and how we sort of lead through our coaching, but then understand how we can bring in the other energy as well so that we can be
Yeah.
full, well-rounded or holistic in our approach, because that's obviously going to set our clients up for success. But it's also just going to make sure we're, you know, attracting, the right outcomes for our clients as well, right? And I think, yeah, there's some really good thoughts to continue there. Mm.
For sure. Yeah.
Mm.
Yes, I agree. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm such a geek for this stuff. Like, I'm always reading a book about, psychology, and I've learned a lot about like the difference between men and women
in terms of our
Mm,
brains and how we're wired. And I find it really interesting that, again, we're not talking about this, but even
mm,
in terms of energy, right? Like men, testosterone, it just regenerates every 24 hours. Boom, boom, boom.
mhm,
Whereas
mhm.
women, we're like this freaking roller coaster.
Yeah,
Like certain
yeah.
weeks, we're just out. And that's why it makes sense that we actually learn how to operate the way that we're wired as well.
Mm, mm.
Because every woman knows there's like 1 week in the month where you're just like superwoman and you get everything done. Like, and
Yeah,
it's really interesting. Is okay, so feminine for me, a lot of it is like learning how to trust yourself, like listening to yourself, right? Trusting your own
yeah.
wisdom, your own intuition, slowing down enough to be present with yourself and what's going on within you. And
Mhm.
people always told me, right? Because I always said to people, I'm an all or nothing person, right? And I always
Yeah.
got people gave me shit for that. But it works for me because
Mhm.
when I'm on, I'm on. And when I'm off, I'm
Mhm.
off. And there's no in
Yeah,
between. So when I'm
yeah,
on, I can go like I'll be literally up till midnight sketching up things, creating things, and I'm excited. It's not a drain. I'm like,
yeah,
yes, yes, yes.
yeah.
I've got all the things going. Like right now, I have 2 programs and 2 masterclasses sketched up, complete programs, like sketched up on my
There you go.
table. And it's like, okay, blah, blah, blah. And then, so it's like all that happens. And then the magic is then working within my energy, right? So when I'm like flat and
Mm,
exhausted and drained, I'm not going to push
mhm,
myself to do stuff because it's going to be
mm.
shit. Like you're going to
Yeah,
feel the difference when I don't care and I don't want to be there. But the power of the masculine, right, is the systems and the structure that support it. And I think this is the
mhm,
key
mhm.
for any ladies out there is that we have to learn how to build the systems because it might seem boring, but it's what supports our feminine so that then we can show up
Mhm.
and create and flow, right? And work with that energy because we've got the structure to support it. Because if we only
Yeah,
operate in feminine, nothing happens. It's a bunch of ideas
yeah,
on your table that never get built,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah. I love it. I
Yeah.
think there's so much power in that, and like in building those systems, to support like over say the month, and like understanding and working with your rhythm, your energy rhythm, to understand what are the weeks that you're going to be more productive, what are the weeks that aren't going to be so naturally productive, and still look ahead of time to think what are the small things that I could be doing in that space, or what would I like to do during that space, so that planning that ahead of time, being intentional with that ahead of time, when those weeks come, and even if it is only like 10% of what you'd normally do, like that is still moving the needle forward, even ever so slightly, which is just that momentum, and it's something to celebrate, and it's something so good to be. And I think, yeah, there's just so much yes to that. And I also just want to touch on though as
Mhm.
well, like, with like guys and this again, a lot of guys just feeling like they always do just need to push, 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 like, there's no excuses, like just go for it sort of thing. But it's also being okay and being vulnerable enough to recognize that even for guys, you're still going to have moments where you dip, and you're going to have moments when you soar. And it's again starting to think about that, and reflect on when those peaks and rise happen over your month as well. Is there certain things that trigger different energy levels to fluctuate, and do exactly the same thing. And it's okay to plan days that lower work capacity, because your energy is not where it needs to be. And I think it's just important sometimes to say that and give guys that permission, because it's not always said enough, I think. Yeah.
Agreed, agreed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this was when I first started my business, I was full masculine energy, and
Mm,
it came
wow.
from a real like scarcity place. It came because I was
Yep.
trying to earn my worth. I was trying to prove
Yep.
it, right? Like there was a lot of work that
Mm,
I still needed to do on myself, and so I
mhm,
was like, okay, if I'm always busy and productive, and my calendar is full, and I feel really important,
mm,
then it's going to fill this
mm.
gaping hole that I have within myself. And that didn't work, plot twist. But my mentor, right now, he has like 47 world champs. He works with Olympic
Mm.
athletes and stuff. And he was the
Wow.
one, oh, he's the most masculine of all men, right? And he said to
Yep.
me, Monica, this is bullshit. Like, you need to stop. I was like, what do you mean?
Mm.
I said, I watched a movie. I was like, but I watched a movie tonight. And he was like, but did you, or were you doing something else? And I was like, yeah, just
Yeah.
sending emails like
Snapped. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but he really taught me this idea, and it's from a mindset
Mm,
perspective, and it changed my
mm,
whole life. So
mm,
I might link it in the description actually. He created this podcast episode called All and Nothing, meaning that
mm.
we've got to do both, right? Because
Yeah.
our mind is always there, it can't be fooled. So
Yeah.
if our mind has sent us very clear signs that say, you're tired, you need to rest, you need
Yeah.
to slow down,
Yeah.
we're not happy, we're achy, we're not sleeping, like we're not meant to live on 20 cups of coffee a day. Um,
Nope.
but we push through. I mean, something's going to
Yeah.
happen, right? Something's got to give. But two, what happens is like when it's time to go, we're not going to go
Mm,
because our mind is like, oh, we've got to conserve, we've got to hold back. And so
mm.
this is the principle that he has used with world champions to break world records. Like they already
Yeah.
had the world record and they broke their own world record by resting.
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
I have goosebumps whenever I talk
Goes
about
to
this.
show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Like I'll never forget.
Yeah.
There's the story that he told about like a triathlon, a woman that she already had like a gold. I think no, she had a silver in triathlon, and she'd get to
Yeah.
the certain point, the certain time, and she could not break through it. And so her response was, "I need to work harder. Right? I'm gonna hustle more.
Mm.
I'm gonna change all this." And he was like, "What the heck? Like you're exhausted." He's like, "You're taking 3 days off," and she was like, "You know, like what?"
No.
So she
Yeah.
took 3 days off, and then she beat the world record. And it's
Yeah.
so counterintuitive to what we've been taught. You know, it's like
Mhm,
it's such a
mhm.
process of unlearning, I think, that we have to learn how to rest and how to receive and how to recharge. And it's like when we understand those
Definitely.
things like the law of attraction, we're attracting
Mm,
based on our state, not our effort.
mm,
So it's like
mm.
actually sometimes the best thing that you can do is go to the beach on a Tuesday. And
Yeah,
just
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
that's it. Take those intentional breaks. It's like the one way that I like to look at it as well. It's one thing to have a break, but what type of break are you having? Are you falling onto the couch because you're absolutely exhausted? And hey, like things may happen that cause that, but like if that's kind of your default, like is that the right approach? Or are we taking intentional breaks and actually doing activities that recharge us, that energize us both physically, mentally, and emotionally, right? And I think that's the key, and I just love that story because it's just such a beautiful example of, like, high performers doing incredible work, absolutely smashing their goals and dreams, but realizing that it's giving themselves a break to truly recharge, which are gonna help them leapfrog into that next level, into doing even more incredible and beautiful things that they, had only been dreaming of. So I think that's such a cool story, and please do link that episode because I also love to listen to it.
Yeah, I will for sure. Hey, we used to always talk about this, and like because I used to say to him, like, I can't imagine you not being like on, because when he shows up, he's
Mm,
on, like he's terrifying, right?
mm.
Like, and he was like, yeah, but that's because you don't see me when I'm not on, right? And he was like,
Yeah.
he said, "quote I'm the ultimate sloth," and I love that so much
Mm,
because that's the level, right? If you want to be all the way on and like high
yeah,
achieving, you need to be all
yeah,
the way off as well.
yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
both. It's
100%.
and
Yeah,
I love that. And it literally changed my whole life. And then it
yeah,
forced me much more into that feminine energy, right? Which if we
mhm,
geek out on the mindset stuff, what happens when we
mhm,
slow down? Well, we're present.
mm,
And if
mhm,
your head
mhm,
is like a total like trash can full of just self-loathing and trauma that hasn't been faced, like it's very uncomfortable to be present, which is why a lot
yeah,
of us operate in a masculine energy. And because we
yeah,
feel good, I'm busy, I'm productive, I'm successful,
yeah,
you're actually
yeah,
avoidant. Like I say this with so much love,
yeah,
and this was me for years, but actually the most productive thing you can do is deal with those thoughts in your head, deal with the
yeah,
self-loathing and the pain and the tears that need to be felt and released. It's like, yeah, but that's why I didn't do it for years. It was so
yeah,
painful that our
yeah.
mind doesn't want us to feel pain. So
That's how
instead,
we're
I was
avoiding that.
busy.
Mhm,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I love that. I think that's such a powerful way to look at it, right? And it just kind of got me thinking as well, like similar thought, kind of different, but like around, you know, people would always be like, they would assume for me personally that I was, very, outgoing, just full of energy, just loved being around people, like always showed up with my A game, like always, people just assume that of me. But it's the same thing though that, and I never kind of understood why, because outside of the interactions, like I'm very quiet, I'm very introverted, I'm very reserved. Um, but that's exactly what you're talking about there, right? And it's being okay to have these kind of different, maybe switches, and allowing yourself just to kind of tap into these different energies and just being aware of that. Um, yeah, it's very cool. I'm just kind of reflecting live because I kind of hadn't thought about it quite like that, right? And I think that's very interesting. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And because people see us in a certain moment and assume that it's natural
Mm.
too. Do you find this? Like,
Hmm.
people
Yeah,
always
yeah.
make assumptions about me that are so, like, people assume that I'm positive all the time, which I think is so
Hmm.
funny. Because I'm like, do you know how many
Yeah, I
tears
feel
I've
that.
cried to be this positive? Like, do you know how much
Hmm.
shit I
Yeah,
have felt in order to be this version of myself? It is
yeah.
ugly. Like, I've kept Kleenex in business, right?
Yeah. Oh,
But
I
it's,
feel you. I
yeah.
feel you on that as well. Very similar story for myself. I think truthfully for myself, I think for the longest time I was putting on positivity as a front, as a way of operating, because I felt like it was the easier thing to do. But in more recent times, absolutely, I feel you on that, and like I would still show up the same way, and people don't necessarily see or understand the journey that we go through to understand how and why we can actually show up this way now. Like you say, some of the tears that we've gone through, some of the pain that we've actually gone through, and understanding our own journey to get to where we are, so we can hold that level of energy. Mm.
I love it. Yeah. And that's actually a good cue for everyone to just take a second and reflect on how far we've actually come. Because all of us at some point were freaking out about putting a photo on the internet, and here we are
Yeah.
on podcasts and videos every day. And like, yeah, it's crazy to think. Like, I remember my first networking meeting I went to and I was almost throwing up. Like, I was shaking. I was so
Mm.
scared.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
And
think
now look
that's
at you.
I think that's
Absolutely.
cool for all of us. And because it's so easy to forget, right? Because you're just like, okay, cool, on to the next thing. What do I want to work on
Mm.
next? And it's like, old me wouldn't even recognize this me.
That's it. I think it's so powerful, and I literally had a moment like that the other day where it was like, doing my reflections for the year that has just been in 2024, and there was still part of me that was just like, I wish I'd done more. I wish I'd done that, right? But then I saw another creator on Instagram who shared a video where she was reflecting back to herself like 4 or 5 years ago. She's like, I'm so proud of that person, would be so proud of what I've achieved. And I took the time then to think and reflect back and be like, 2019 me had only just got the idea to start a business.
Yeah.
you know, that me would be so damn proud, so excited to understand everything that we did in 2024, the places that we got to travel to, the people we got to work with, like all that sort of cool stuff. Like, and that excitement just absolutely fueled me again. So I definitely like, I want to second what you said is take the time to actually just think back on everything that you've achieved and what you've actually done, and just celebrate that, because we don't do it enough.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. And that is a wrap. Thank you for showing up for yourself, for being here, and please let me know your aha moments. I want to hear all about them. For extra support, make sure you're following me on TikTok and Instagram at the Monica Ferguson. Check out the School of Greatness for self-study courses, and of course, if you want one-on-one mentoring, just DM me and I would love to have a chat with you. Go and slay the day. Thank you for being you. See you soon.